make it a little bit easier for that spindle to move. This one will. Thing is just going to be household lint. Really easy to find in any dryer. That way none of these supplies have...
I literally felt no resistance.
We've got our handle. We're going to cut a lot for some of these measurements, especially the 2x4. So the 2x4, you're going to want one piece that's roughly 9. A good example of something that it really is. So what we're doing instead is we're going to be using a copper cap so that we can't burn through our spindle. Doing that, Nate, if you will take some of our fireboard pieces, we need some...
We want a lot of friction up here, but we don't want friction where it's being... A lot of added friction in the wood that's holding your...
How do you really feel? Dowel and some paracord.
The other method, you probably had your spindle go flying.
Is that the wood itself is soft and non-resinous. Now, if you're wider,
Probably.
but it's still smoking. That's such a good sign.
This is a fire. For actually starting a fire, I would say it's worth just putting in the practice
But they're not on the other.
for next winter.
It may be good. It may be good. Let up. You don't even need to worry about finding a curved piece of wood. This is just a straight. Hopefully we didn't.
I would say that this is really good for practice. It holds the spindle in place, keeps it from firing off, which is probably the big
So this is where the fireboard's.
board.
But you can already see.
Resistance.
Cool. We've got all of our pieces. So now we've just got to put everything. The bow drill is one of mankind's oldest ways of starting fires, but sometimes it can be difficult for you to know to be found or gathered out in the wilderness. This is all hardware. We'll just make a couple of quick marks here.
This is more precise than we need to be, but just to build the frame.
You got it. So another reason this project is so nice is you don't have to be perfectly precise.
Held.
Just make sure it doesn't hit the tip of the spindle.
We don't want oil down here because then
So there is going to be a little bit of problems with the friction, which is what we saw with caveman chemistry.
on a power saw before. All right, trying this with balsa wood. Spindle in place, and so while this might be really good for practice outside of the cap, because we're going to recess this cap down into the piece of wood.
If your supplies aren't right, you're not going to get a fire anyways, and that can be really frustrating for a beginner. Spindle down a little bit. We need a pointy end on one side that's going to go into the fireboard. While I'm doing, pull out that coal later. Don't light yourself on fire. To break off the branch, and when you press your thumbnail into it, you should be able to
Cap is in there. We're not even using any glue or anything. It's being held in place by friction, just great.
just notch up the wood a little bit so it's got something to catch on. That's usually how you can tell if you have an ember is.
Before we get any smoke.
So the important thing about a bow drill when you're building this drill in a survival situation, you could. So here's the basic idea. We are going to take it to
Try and see if it works. It's made of basswood, which is a fairly soft wood, and these are usually sold at craft stores. We then have poplar. I have never cut balsa wood. I got everything lined up correctly.
wood. It can be.
Try and see which one works best for you. As an alternative for
Spindle is so smooth because it was originally a dowel that this is just going to slip right off of my paracord.
biggest problem when you're
It's going to go. You can see it's going to be a very snug.
There we go. Overall, I like a failure.
So even our kindling as far as we need. So now we just need to sand this 4 more pieces that will be 12 inches long.
Keep track of what you see and the timestamp of when you see it. We've got some big prizes to give.
Don't really need this much. We're going to use about 6 feet.
It's extra paracord, but then if it starts to
Here at the bottom, that part wants to stay smooth. This part can be rough, just in case. Pull the bow, and then the fireboard is going to go straight through the middle. Now, this is mainly inspired by the book, Okay, We Can Get a Good Smoke Whiff, but probably won't get an ember. We've got a couple of harder fires out in the wilderness. That can be really tough to figure out. It means it has to be off the ground, but dry and brittle enough. Craft store and your house supplies, it's really easy to make. Quick finishing touches. This
bow. This dowel right here is made of down inside it. That's going to be the axle that our spindle turns in.
Man, chemistry, it's awesome. We're gonna use a lot of those ideas, but we're gonna make this as foolproof as easier to find.
Drilling a hole into a rock is a pain in the butt. For our fireboard, instead of basswood, we do have a piece of balsa, which is extremely soft. So we're gonna, video has had secret codes, graphic.
Really easy for us to pull.
But we might end up drilling right through it before.
That's all we need. You don't, and just as you homemade fire.
Poplar, and what it's made of isn't really important. The importance is that it's
In the wood. This fits perfectly over the top with no friction. Comfortably.
Gonna have to have a spot on the bottom. That's where the cap is gonna go, and I want to be able
To hold your spindle and fireboard into place.
place for you, so that's not an issue.
If you don't have the right type of wood, if the wood's too wet,
Let's take this fire. Actually putting just a little bit of oil onto our spindle here, because if you've tried making the bow drill, you can't, because the whole thing would have to move. And we'll
video with us using a primitive bow drill style, we were using what's called a palm rock. Now,
this for teaching kids who are just trying to be used to build the frame itself.
once you put that down, that spindle's not going in.
This right here is an oak dowel. It's very sturdy. It's got a lot of strength to it, and this is what we're going to use as the
2x4 and assemble it into a stand hole where the fireboard is going to go. So the spindle will be about an inch on either side.
Yeah, and let's just put a mark right there. I mean, it's right in the middle, I guess. So.
Yeah. The palm rock puts friction down onto the spindle itself. Well, we're using a piece of wood because it's a lot easier. So with these
Away and finding. I think the biggest problem is that you just don't keep the spindle straight up and down, and this is designed.
this channel,
Get worn off in one spot, you can just adjust the cord without having to cut a whole new one. It's not going to go anywhere.
so this is such a simple design.
Outside and see if we can make a fire to get rid of those problems. It really holds everything in place.
Little tiny pieces of fireboard, these are going to go into the bow drill itself. So we'll probably
Has its own share of difficulties. There's
So the knot on one end doesn't really matter so long as it's not going to give.
this for the first time, or even for getting your hand best is the size you should get. This 1-inch dowel is
8-inch hole directly down the center of this piece and into a 1-inch. So what I'm going to do is, but what we want to be careful of is we don't want to create too much friction down. Just kill it. I think you got one.
I think he's died.
Dang it.
All right.
Difficult to learn how to find. So balsa is a very, very soft wood, inch piece of wood in place. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna drill a 5/8, a lot easier to learn, so that when you are out in the wilderness, if you needed to make a bow drill,
That's what we want. It's solid. It's not going to go anywhere.
what sort of supplies you need to find out in the wild. So today we're wood with a normal the wood. There should be no sap, and this kind of wood.
Stand on it so it's even more sturdy.
Now we just need a handle and a bow. Anyway, this isn't gonna fly off and knock into your fingers like the last.
Trying to do it with a regular bow drill and a palm rock, but it
There's a knot that's going to allow us to tighten it and then fit. It's gonna make your really
frame.
drop straight through the top so it can't be jerked out of place when we. Don't stop, don't stop, don't stop! Together. So the design is really this simple. We have 4 12-inch pieces of wood holding a 9. Yeah!
And basswood for spindles, and you can
Little cuts drilled into them so that air can actually get to the fireboard itself and create that ember.
1/8 inch is the inside diameter of it. So what we need is a good size fit for your palm, and that it's wide enough that we can fit this copper cap just to make it work with the standard type of bow drill. Guys, you've probably noticed.
Inches. So our bow, we're gonna keep the same size and make this much easier to start your fire.
We've got a piece of 2x4 and several different dowels.
I'm gonna show you how you can make your own bow drill out of supplies simply from the hardware and craft store.
It's a bit over-engineered, but this particular dowel is 1 1/8 of an inch. Whatever fits. All right, that should just help me see fire start. Also trying not to get oil on the paracord.
Normal bow drill will be a clove hitch, which is so what we're gonna probably do is add a little bit of oil into
Like 1,000 times.
Cracked into your knuckles, made you say a lot of bad words.
This one, the codes might make you every new
Show you a really nice simplified way of doing this, makes it a whole lot easier. Plies, we make it as simple as it can possibly be, and also
And it won't have friction, and the friction is what makes the
pieces that need to be able to come out, the fireboard and the dowel. Possible. It can be really hard when you're starting out with a bow drill fire to keep the spindle in place, to get enough. You got a number. You did it.
Here, let's take a look at what we're going to use them for. The 2x4 is going to...
How is that surviving this? That crack needed to...
It is a drill bit that's the same diameter as the
board. This piece never needs to move again. The only... You are so close. Now, the reason that we're doing this, if you've seen the previous...
Notice that since we introduced Cali in our Captain America Shield video,
if it continues to smoke after you stop pulling, you can usually catch it. Friction, so we're gonna show...
we'll put the pressure right there, so probably right about like that.
So we'll probably want to give him...
glitches and other secret elements hidden into it.
Our board options as well.
Let's get started. I think the first step, 5/8 inch copper cap, and the 5...
Not gonna worry about cutting that. But the dowel for our handle, measure this to a size that fits your hand.
I'm poopy. 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 I am poopy. I'm 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 poopy.